There was an old lady lived over the sea, and she was an island queen. Her daughter lived off in a new country with an ocean of water between. The old lady's pockets were full of gold, but never contented was she. So she called on her daughter to pay her a tax of 3 pence a pound on her tea. Oh, 3 pence a pound on her tea. Now mother, dear mother, the daughter replied, I shan't do the thing that you wax. I'm willing to pay a fair price for the tea, but never the 3-penny tax. You shall, quoth the mother, and redden with rage, for you're my own daughter, you see. And sure 'tis quite proper the daughter should pay her mother a tax on her tea. Her mother a tax on her tea. The tea was conveyed to the daughter's door, down by the ocean side, and the bouncing girl poured out every pound in the dark and boiling tide. And then she called out to the island queen, oh mother, dear mother, quoth she, your tea you may have when 'tis steeped enough, but never a tax from me, but never a tax from me, but never a tax from me.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet for days of old lang syne.
Throughout history, the imbalance of power and the prominence of prejudice between racial classes has superseded many issues. The issue of race is one of the controversy and constant debate. Slavery is one form of this inequality, the product of oppression and greed. However, just as there have been those who have made slavery a reality and promoted it, there has been those who fought to prevent and stop racial discrimination and oppression. These people were abolitionists, and their movement meant to bring an end to this human suffering, and in this case, the suffering of American slaves in the United States, which began in the 1870s and ended around the 1930s. Abolitionists came from various backgrounds, but all shared the same purpose and ideology. Some of these inspirational people were Harriet Tubman, John Brown, and Frederick Douglass. Their goal of immediate emancipation and the instillment of rights took years to accomplish, and a plenitude of force in the form of the supports of justice.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet for days of old lang syne. We twa aboard the brace and pulled the gowans fine. But we've wandered many we've had since days of old lang syne, and we've paddled in the barn frae morn and sun till dine, but seas between us braid hillwood.
Born into slavery on a plantation in Maryland in the early to mid 1800s, Harriet Tubman experienced the hardships faced by those of African ancestry in the United States. As a young child, she took care of her siblings and was constantly lent out by her owner to others in the community. During this lending, she experienced beatings and whippings, and eventually, in an accident where she was struck by a brick in the head, she was deemed useless. When her master passed away, she attempted escaping for the first time, returning shortly after. But she succeeded a second time, leaving slavery behind as a painful memory. She was married to a freedman named John Tubman around 1844. She ended up in Philadelphia, but after first taste of freedom, Tubman began to think about those she left behind. Her family and consequently came up with a plan to help them escape the harsh reality of slavery with her. So with this vision in mind, her plan was put into action. One of her various methods of freeing slaves was the use of the Underground Railroad. With the help of fellow abolitionists and ministers, Tubman successfully freed her family and 300 other slaves, never losing one along the way. Later in life, she would go on to being a nurse and a spy in the Civil War, and eventually flourish in the women's suffrage movement. She died in 1913 at the age of 93.
For old lang syne we'll tak a cup o' kindness yet for days of old lang syne.
Frederick Douglass was also born into slavery in Maryland in 1818. He was separated from his mother and lived with his grandmother from a young age. And his father was an unknown white man. His master would send him to friends, and he eventually was sent to a cruel farmer. He suffered floggings daily and maintained those scars until his death. He was literate, which was odd for a slave at the time. In 1838, at age 20, he obtained his freedom. Through his intellectual and oratory writings, he had proven false the ideology long held by slaveholders that slaves were incapable of intellectual thought. Douglass believed that education was the key of quality and freedom of all, especially slaves. Like Tubman, Douglass met and married a free black woman, Anna Murray, who helped him escape his masters. Through various means, such as autobiographies, travels of Europe, and the foundings of the newspapers such as the North Star, Douglass proposed change and wrote about his ideas and opinions regarding the current states of equality and freedom. Along with Tubman, Douglass also worked with women's rights and freed many slaves by various modes. During the Civil War, he supported the Emancipation Proclamation and was elected, without his knowing, to run for vice presidency. In 1895, Douglas suffered a heart attack or stroke and passed away shortly after leaving behind a collective of work that would go on to inspire next generations.
For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet for old lang syne, for old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o'.
Unlike his two counterparts, John Brown was born neither a slave nor of African ancestry. He was born in Connecticut in 1800 of English Puritan ancestry. He believed in the use of violence as the means of procuring freedom. Brown was not only involved but headed the Powhatan massacre in Kansas and was a prolific member of the Free Church. His transformative years occurred in Springfield. Brown put together militas and held violent speeches that called the people to action. He believed that he could secure Kansas as a slavery-free state and obtain the destruction of slavery. His abolitionistic activities consisted of gathering of forces, raids, fights, the destruction of his homeland in New York, and eventually his inevitable imprisonment. At his trial, he was ordered to the gallows to face his death. He later showed remorse at his fallible idea that bloodshed could help destroy the problem. On the morning of December 2nd, Brown was hung against outrage and sentiment of Victor Hugo and the Senate's investigation.
We'll take a cup o' kindness yet for old lang syne.
Through various modes, some intellectual and others violent, the road to freedom was not easy, but the long-term goal of equality was eventually met. Often it is the movements that is discussed, but not the people that have sacrificed and been put in situations of life or death. We must not overlook the writers and characters of our history books, for they are the frames of our current world and those who have given us our claim to freedom, rights, and the pursuit of happiness.
When they are home, when they are home, when they are, oh, 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 hey, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. When they are